Today, we're going to dive into a story from the history of British India that is absolutely powerful. But, a lot of people just don't know about it. It's a story that starts with peaceful prayer and ends with one of the most brutal forms of execution you can even imagine. And it leaves us with some really tough questions.
So here it is. This is the central mystery we're going to unravel. How on earth does a movement that started with peaceful chanting end like that? What could possibly happen to drive a spiritual group to the point where the British are literally blowing them from cannons? To really get the shocking end, we have to go all the way back to the beginning.
Now, it might seem a little backwards, but we're going to start with the brutal climax in 1872. This is the event that really sealed the Kuka Rebellion in the history books. But to understand how it got to this point, we need to rewind.
See, this whole movement wasn't born out of anger or politics or weapons, not at all. It began with faith. It was a drive for spiritual purification, and its roots were deeply, deeply peaceful and devotional.
So let's set the scene. Picture this. It's 1840, we're in Punjab, and our story starts with a man named Bhagat Jawahar. Now, he wasn't a general or a politician. He was a humble Sikh carpenter saint, and his only mission was spiritual reform within his community.
So you might be wondering, where did the name Kuka even come from? Well, it's actually pretty interesting. It was a nickname, really. His followers would get into this state of ecstasy during worship, chanting hymns so loudly that it made this distinct sound. Kuka, Kuka. Their very name came from this passionate spiritual devotion. And for a while, that spiritual focus was everything. But then, a huge change. A new leader steps onto the scene, and he brings a radically different vision that is going to completely alter the movement's destiny. After the founder passed away, this man, Guru Ram Singh, took the helm in 1863, and he's the one who's going to transform this spiritual group into a political force, a force that would end up directly challenging the most powerful empire on the planet.
Now, under his leadership, this wasn't some sudden flip of a switch. It was more of a deliberate, three-step process. First, he totally honored the original mission of spiritual purity. Then, he expanded it into social reform, tackling things like the caste system and addiction. And finally, he took the most explosive step of all, aiming for a political revolt against British rule.
So why? Why this dramatic jump from prayer to armed rebellion? Well, the answer isn't just one single thing. It was this really potent mix of grievances that have been simmering for a while.
Okay, so let's break down what fueled this. First, there was a growing anger over the British interfering in Sikh traditions, especially after the fall of the Sikh Empire. A huge flashpoint was the British support for cow slaughterhouses, which was incredibly offensive to them. On top of that, you still have this ongoing drive for social reform. But really, it all boiled down to one ultimate goal: get the British out and bring back Sikh sovereignty.
All these simmering tensions finally boiled over in a town called Malerkotla. This was the flashpoint. This is where the movement's ideals crashed head-on with the brutal reality of British imperial power.
And man, the escalation was incredibly fast. In 1863, Guru Ram Singh formally organizes the movement. By 1871, totally provoked by the cow slaughter issue, a Kuka group attacks Malerkotla. Just a few months later, in January 1872, they attack again, this time with a bigger force. And that was the point of no return.
The British response was swift, and it was just unimaginably brutal. A deputy commissioner by the name of Cowan ordered the execution of 66 Kuka rebels without any kind of proper trial. They were lined up and blown apart by cannons, a horrifying public display designed to just utterly crush the rebellion.
With its followers executed so brutally and so publicly, the rebellion was broken. And its leader, Guru Ram Singh, he was arrested under a regulation that basically allowed him to be held forever without a trial. He was exiled to Rangoon, and he would never see his homeland again.
So, we're left with this really fundamental question, aren't we? The Kuka movement started with sacred chants, all to purify a faith. It ended with cannon fire against an empire. So at what point does a fight for your beliefs become an act of rebellion? And maybe the more important question is, who gets to draw that line?